Okay, before we leave Federalist number 3, let me bring to your attention something that's very important. In the paragraph that we read earlier that says, under the national government, treaties and articles of treaties, as well as the laws of nations, will always be expounded in one sense and executed in the same manner, whereas adjudications on the same points and questions in 13 states or in 3 or 4 confederacies will not always accord or be consistent. And that as well from the variety of independent courts and judges appointed by different and independent governments, as from the different local laws and interests which may affect and influence them. The wisdom of the convention in committing such question to the jurisdiction and judgment of courts appointed and responsible only to one national government cannot be too much commended. As I mentioned earlier, here he's talking about why it is good to have federal judges decide and judge on certain things, because federal judges are appointed for life, as long as what they call during good behavior, as long as they don't commit any crimes or do anything that is outrageous. The reason is that if you, let's say you had lent somebody some money in one of the states, and the person who owed you money was going to pay you with paper money that was not worth anything because of depreciation, you could sue them and you could sue to get your money back. But if this case went to the state court, where a lot of times these state courts judges were partial to the people who lived in their states. In other words, they looked favorably, or they decided the cases favorably for the people who lived in their states rather than for somebody from out of state. So there was that issue of favoritism that was a problem. So the federal judges would hopefully alleviate that problem, because number one, they did not necessarily belong to that state. Number two, even if they did, they would not be worried that they would lose their job because they were appointed for life. And this is one of the important things that you will come across as you read the Federalist Papers and the Constitution of the United States. One of the most important parts of the Constitution, a lot of these framers thought it was Article 1, Section 10, which took away the power for the states to print money. Because what they were doing, what they had done after the war, they had printed money. This money had depreciated. At certain times and places, it was not even worth 20% of what it originally was. And all these people who owed money would go to the state legislatures and say, please pass relief laws, debt relief laws, tax relief laws. In other words, write laws that will not make us pay our debts immediately, or would allow us to pay our debts with these cheap paper monies. So the whole system was thrown off, and the framers, some of them selfishly, some of them not so, because they thought that it is very important to respect contracts and respect the value of people's property. They wanted to make sure that states do not print paper money. So this issue of debt relief And tax relief is very important as we discuss the Federalist Papers and the Constitution. And some scholars think, or part of their books really overemphasize this fact that it was all these debtors, these people who owed debts and wanted the states to write laws that would be favorable to them, that would be good for them, that actually prompted this new Constitution to be written. And I've shown you this book. Let me show it to you one more time. This book is a good one to take a look at as you study the Federalist Papers. It's written real well, and it gives you a lot of examples about what was going on in the states and what led up to the Constitutional Convention. It's called Unruly Americans and the Origins of the Constitution. It's written by Woody Holton. You can see some of his videos on C-SPAN or YouTube. And of course, there are works of other scholars that sometimes join him in the panel discussion and sometimes don't even agree with him. But we want to study this subject in depth. We don't want to just take a look at it superficially. So it's important for us to kind of look at what some of the scholars who disagree with him, see what they say. So make sure this is one of the books that you look at. I've already mentioned it to you. Yeah, just keep in mind that when I started getting fascinated with American history, and I was reading the Declaration of Independence and that phrase, life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, I already showed you on a paper that this was a new form of putting what John Locke had said, that government is there to protect, preserve life, liberty, and property. Now, the word property is dropped in the Declaration of Independence, but it's very important for you to remember that the issue of contract, making sure that you respect the contracts, you live up to them, has stayed very important during the constitutional life of America, the law of America. So even though it's not mentioned, it is very important to appreciate how they looked at property then and now, and at the same time see the issue of property, of money, wealth, how influential it was in writing of the Constitution. Did these guys really only were thinking about themselves, or were they thinking about the future generations? Or maybe there's a happy medium in between. Of course, as human beings, they're going to think about what's best for them, but maybe, as I have said elsewhere, most of these guys, at least some of the important ones, knew that they were at a juncture in history where they could leave their names behind for generations to come. These are like Ben Franklin, George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, John Adams, James Madison, and a handful of others. James Wilson, Gouverneur Morris. So once you start reading and learning more about that era, I think all of this will become clearer to you. So I invite you to read and watch talks by different scholars and just deepen your knowledge of this era. Thank you.